Okay, perfect. Thank you. Hey folks, thanks for coming in. So today I'm going to talk about L2s and bridge security and how they intersect. It's a cute little topic because it's one of those topics which has lots of like misconceptions in this space, even among OGs and so on. Hello. Okay. Perhaps better. Okay. So let's start. First, first of all, like I'm gonna keep this session relatively small. I won't talk for an hour. I want this to be more interactive. I'll get some content out as a starting point, and then whatever questions you guys might have, any questions, any ideas, we can discuss. So let's start with L2s. So what's an L2? Like that's need to define that before we talk anything. So an L2 or layer 2 is basically an extension to a layer 1 chain like Ethereum, which in theory should provide the same security guarantees as the L1. The reason for L2s to exist is to scale. Uh, when we talk about scaling, there are at a high level two types of scalabilities, like either a vertical scaling scheme where you just have one single system and you make it more efficient, scale it as much as possible, like Solana, or you have horizontal scaling where you decentralize or you have compute which is distributed and you just keep adding more and more distributed compute to have higher throughput. Ethereum chose this way and it introduced the concept of L2s. Ethereum can keep adding more and more L2s with their own capacity. And at the end, the idea is all of this capacity combined together is going to be much larger than what one single system can vertically accelerate. Now, for this to be really true, you really need the security or guarantees offered by L2s to be the same or almost same as what Ethereum offers. This is why like we have some guidelines and standards as well. There are L2s with stage 0, stage 1, stage 2 that define what level of securities an L2 offer and so on. But we are here today to go a bit deeper because a lot of these standards are defined in a very theoretical sense which don't apply to the practical world. For example, all of the standards are meant for the native bridge of an L2. They're meant to protect the assets that came into the L2 through the native bridge. But in reality, what happens is most of the assets coming in an L2 right now are not coming from the native bridge. They are just coming from somewhere else. So this is an example of base chain, for example, and the ratios look almost similar. The canonical bridge is the native bridge, what I'm talking about. About 25% of the assets on the chain are coming from the canonical bridge. 75% of the assets are coming from somewhere else, either external bridges like layer 0, or they are being natively minted on the chain and so on. Now, these bridges and assets have completely different properties. They don't get the L2 security guarantees that the canonical bridged asset of a chain gives them. So using them is maybe not the same thing as using that on Ethereum, but that's something people miss out on. So when we talk about L2 security, there are really two components we need to talk about. One is the actual security of the transactions happening on L2 itself. Like if I'm on L2, let's say I'm on Arbitrum, I send USDC to Alice. Now this transaction has nothing to do with Ethereum. It's just purely happening on Arbitrum, and to guarantee the security of this transaction, that this transaction actually happened, will not roll back, and so on. That's one sort of security we need from L2s. This comes from finality. Finality of L2s, optimistic L2s, unfortunately is 7 days. So you really can't be 100% sure that if I send money to Alice on Arbitrum, Alice will still have it, unless you have waited for 7 days for it to finalize. But in reality, you would have practical confirmation within seconds because like Arbitrum would give you instant confirmation that okay, I've added this transaction to my sequencer and I will not roll back. So as long as we trust Arbitrum's single sequencer, this would be fine. The second level of security guarantee you get from Arbitrum posting the transaction ordering on Ethereum, which happens, I think, every 15 minutes. Feel free to correct me. But yeah, every 15 minutes, the sequencer will post whatever transactions are going to be included in the chain on Ethereum. And then, like, okay, now I know for sure this transaction is going to be included. I am not guaranteed the result of it, but at least I know my transaction will be included. And I can calculate the result myself. Since I know all of the transactions in start, they are being posted on Ethereum, I can run a full node. I can know the result, what the result is going to be. It will not diverge. So for practical reasons, those guarantees are good enough. So yeah, when it comes to that means when it comes to guaranteeing state transition on the chain itself, like a transfer happening or not, the most important thing for the chain to guarantee or an L2 to guarantee is transaction ordering. As long as the transaction ordering is confirmed and verified and cannot be rolled back and cannot be changed, the state can be calculated automatically. State is fine. So transaction ordering, the most important thing. Fortunately, unfortunately, right now most of the rollups have a single sequencer, which means they control the transaction ordering completely. The upside of this is there are very few. There are very there's very little chance that the transaction ordering would get modified or would get altered or would get reorged, because there's these L2s don't have incentives to do it. Like, imagine if Arbitrum did it once, they would lose all of their reputation. So they will do everything for it to not happen. Obviously, the downside is that you're trusting Arbitrum to not do this, at least for the first 15 minutes or so till they post it on Ethereum. Once it's on Ethereum, then it's all good. Then they can't do it. But people don't wait for 15 minutes after sending a transfer. I don't know if there is any good user-facing tool which even shows if a transfer has been confirmed on Ethereum. It just happens on the backend. So that's one practical aspect of it. Okay, that's for transactions happening on the chain itself and the chain state and chain ordering. The second part is the bridge or asset value. Now you're transferring USDC on Arbitrum, but is that USDC worth anything? Even if Alice gets the USDC, is that USDC worth anything? That's the question. Now, if that USDC came from the canonical bridge or native bridge of Arbitrum, it would have the guarantees of an optimistic bridge, which will have 7-day challenge period and so on. So you would have some guarantees defined by people what an L2 should look like, that the asset will have value. It will have logged component on Ethereum. If you want to withdraw, you can withdraw. You wait 7 days, you withdraw, and so on. But in reality, most of the major assets, USDC, USDT, and so on, except ETH, don't come to the chain through the canonical bridge. They come through some other bridge usually. Circle uses CCIP, USDT 0 uses layer 0. So there you have no L2 guarantee. Like, sure, it doesn't really matter if you're using Arbitrum or you're using like a Ganache instance in someone's laptop. You'll have the same asset guarantees if the asset is coming from a third-party bridge. If layer 0 is integrated in whatever chain, doesn't matter, it's an L2, L3, nothing L, whatever, it would have the same security guarantees. So bridge security is also important, because bridges are actually like the often misunderstood part, but bridges have a higher level say than chain level security. So even if the chain is an L2, chain has its own security guarantees, but the bridge provider like layer 0, for example, can still rug the chain of all its assets like that are coming through layer 0. Layer 0 controls the settlement of its bridge, not the chain. From that, I mean, let's say layer 0 is deployed on 3 different chains: Ethereum, Arbitrum, Optimism. Let's say someone deposits 100 tokens on Ethereum and gets 50 on Arbitrum, 50 on Optimism. Now, it doesn't matter what L2 guarantees, safeties, Optimism, and Arbitrum wants. If any moment layer 0 says that the 50 tokens on Arbitrum are worthless, they are worthless. You can't withdraw them. Layer 0 just wouldn't give you your assets back on Ethereum, no matter what you do on Arbitrum, no matter what forced transactions you do, no matter what you do. It's Layer 0 controls the finality of its bridge. Layer 0 does use finality of Arbitrum to do cross-chain. So basically the chain finality helps the bridge remain solvent and helps the bridge avoid being rugged by other forks, but it does not help the chain from being rugged by the bridge. If the bridge wants, the bridge can still rug the chain. This is why, like, being an L2 is great, having all of those security guarantees is great, but people should also really think about the bridge security part, because in practice that perhaps is even more important but less talked about. People just say, okay, this chain is L2, it's safe, use it. But 99% of the people that are going to use the chain are going to interact with components not secured by L2. They're just independent components. There is an intersection in there, but two different things. Some things to note, even with canonical bridges, like Optimism, Arbitrum, they introduce a concept of custom bridged tokens. Now, custom bridge tokens can actually break L2 guarantees even on the canonical bridge. If, for example, a custom implementation of a token I bridge through the canonical bridge has a function which can burn everyone's balances, then there's no way for you to exit. Like, you bring in, let's say I launch a Mudit token on Ethereum. I let you bridge it to Optimism using their canonical bridge, which should give you all the L2 guarantees that you can exit anytime, you can use forced transactions to exit, you can't be censored, and so on. But I bridge it through a custom implementation, and on the custom implementation on Optimism side, I add a burn function, and I can burn anyone's token. And now I go ahead and burn everyone's tokens. Then magically you can't withdraw, you can't exit. Even though you came to a true L2, you came through the L2 bridge, you did everything right, but you can't exit. You can't redeem any of the security guarantees because it was a custom bridge tokens. So these are some edge cases which just exist. Forced transactions exist, but it's usually limited to just native bridge withdrawals, and that too with a delay. These don't apply to general purpose transactions. Like, for example, if you have deposited your funds on Aave and Arbitrum, you want to exit. The forced transaction may not. I think on Arbitrum actually they support general purpose, but if I remember correctly, Optimism only supports forced transactions for bridge exits, which means if on Optimism you deposited money on Aave, and now Optimism is down, you want to withdraw your assets, you could withdraw. If you were holding those assets on an EOA, you could do a forced transaction to send those assets to the native bridge and withdraw from there. But if they are in Aave, you can't do a forced transaction to withdraw assets first on Aave, then send them to the bridge and then migrate. So even though you can forced exit, you will be stuck because there's no. You're stuck in Aave. You are in true L2, but you're stuck in Aave. It's your funds, but they're gonna be stuck. Plus, there is a delay in forced transactions, usually at least 30 minutes, up to I think 48 hours in some systems. And imagine, like, in volatile environments, if your funds get stuck for 30 minutes, 24 hours, 48 hours, you can't do anything. Then you would get liquidated. You would have bad debt. Anything can happen, like in this volatile market. So all of this combined, it just means L2s have their own, even true L2s, which confine to all of the requirements defined by Ethereum Foundation and L2 Beats and everyone, are not the same as Ethereum. There are differences always that people rarely talk about, but should. It's not that L2s are insecure. They are very safe. People should use them. But at least when we are talking about security, especially here, people should know what the caveats are, where the pitfalls are, so we can be safe. Transaction ordering, I talked about already. It's transaction ordering is the most important thing when it comes to L2 security, and people rarely talk about it. but it is what defines everything. Like if you just remove one transaction from the whole list, the result of every other transaction might be completely different. So transaction ordering is really the most important thing. It's not protocol governed. It's really like can be defined by whoever the sequencer is, and usually we have a single sequencer. So you should, when using an L2, should 100% wait for finality of transaction ordering. Usually happens within minutes. The sequencer posts them on Ethereum, and then you can consider, okay, now my transfer is done. If you're transferring $10, $100, it's fine. But if you're transferring millions, should wait for that confirmation at least. Okay, so we'll talk about bridges now. We talked about L2s a little bit. So obviously, first of type of bridges are the canonical bridges, the native bridges I've been saying about. And there are basically two types: one optimistic bridge and one ZK bridge. Optimistic bridge for the optimistic rollups, ZK bridge for the ZK rollups. The difference between the two is that the optimistic bridges assume everything to be valid until someone challenges it. So optimistic bridges have a withdrawal delay of 7 days usually. It's a manually defined number, can be low, can be higher, but usually 7 days, which means if you're withdrawing, you would just make a claim that, hey, I have these funds on L2, I want to withdraw on L1, and give me my money. The system will then put that claim on hold for 7 days. If anyone can prove that your claim is invalid, you actually don't have money on L2, then they should challenge, they will get some money, and that's good. If nobody challenges, you can get your funds back in 7 days. This is how the optimistic bridges work. ZK bridges, on the other hand, work on validity proofs, which basically say that everything happening must be proven to be correct. You can't make any invalid claims. So with ZK bridges, you have ZK proofs generated for the complete state transition of the L2. So you can prove that, yes, you moved your assets from this to withdrawal address and so on. And using that proof, you can withdraw funds on L1. There's the most basic type of ZK bridge. ZK bridges are much more faster. Usually you can withdraw funds within an hour. That's basically the time it takes to generate ZK proof. Now, honestly, like if you put enough money behind it, you throw enough GPUs, you can have proofs generated within seconds. But it's always a cost optimization question. It's usually not worth spending that much for accelerating proving by 1 hour. So in practice, ZK bridges takes about 1 hour to exit right now. But that's going to come down as we optimize cost for sure. Then we have third-party bridges like Layer 0, like Hyperlane, these like Wormhole. So this category of bridges are basically sort of like validator-based bridges. Usually have a component of executioner plus validator, where basically these are more asset-centric bridges, which basically means that to bridge asset from one chain to another, you just do a transaction on one chain. There are off-chain components listening for your transaction. When they see it, they do their work. If they can do additional check if you want. Like they might do KYC checks. They might check your address through against OFAC list. Whatever you want to define, you can define there. And then if they think it's valid, they would broadcast the same thing on the second chain you want to bridge to, and you would get your assets there. These sort of bridges are usually, they can be the fastest ones because they don't have to wait for finality anywhere. They take on the finality risk of a chain. If a chain reorgs, they take on that risk. Either they would just rug the chain and say, hey, now chain A, you are under collateralized, or they would reimburse chain A, whatever, but they are taking on the risk. Which means they don't have to wait for 7 days for Arbitrum to finalize or 1 hour for a ZK chain to finalize. They can bridge within seconds, within minutes. Plus, they can have additional checks. For a native canonical bridge, they have to be permissionless and unopinionated, so you can't add additional checks, you can't add censorship and so on. But in third-party bridges, you can add whatever. That's why all of the asset issuers usually use them, because they want blacklist and whatever features. The downside here is that they are theoretically much less secure than a native bridge, because they are only, for example, in Debian, for example, in Layer0, they call it Debian. Hyperlane calls it something else. Wormhole calls it something else, but same concept, Guardian or whatever. That it's basically a committee of operators which sign any transaction, and whatever they sign happens. If the committee says bridge $100 to chain B, $100 will be bridged to chain B. If the committee is compromised, committee can be malicious and drain you. Uh, so there is this risk. Now, in practical sense, it's actually very hard to exploit, because it's not just one person committee. It's multiple people plus the executioner, which usually a different entity controls, Layer0 controls in their case. So in practical sense, they are secure. They're fine. There might be edge cases, some assets which may not have a secure committee, but in general, practical sense, they're fine. Then we also have another set of bridges, intent providers or intent bridges, which are all of the fire right now. That I put in third category, because they're not competitors to these underlying bridges. Intent bridges are built on top of canonical bridges and third-party bridges like Layer0. Like intent bridges cannot/should not have direct mint rights on assets. They can't. You don't deposit asset into an intent protocol and get new asset minted on the other side and so on. No. Intent bridges usually just work by solvers. They maintain liquidity on each side, and they basically accelerate bridging for you. So what happens is let's say you send them $100 on Ethereum. They give you $100 on Arbitrum immediately, and they charge 1 cent as a fee. The fees are very low right now. And the fee they charge, because they will do a counter trade. They will basically bridge funds from Ethereum to other chain using the canonical bridge, and actually wait for 1 hour for bridging to happen. So while their assets are running, they will take on the risk of this opportunity cost of 1 cent, and they'll offer you faster bridging. So that's what they're doing. They are a service built on top. That's where most of the volume in bridging goes. But yeah, they don't really control the assets security as much. Okay, those are the latest bridges. These are some high level concepts I wanted to get out first. We'll take a pause here if anyone has any questions or any topics they want to discuss. Yes, not AI. AI is not really changing the bridging space, but it's making easier for people to understand what's happening. So it's definitely bringing more clarity, more transparency in the system, because all of this before was just very very opaque. You have no idea what was happening. This why, like 2-3 years ago, bridge hacks were everywhere. Like you had Ronin hack, you had Horizon hack, everything, all multi-chain bridge hack. All of the large bridges were being hacked like just 2 to 3 years ago. Now you look at the bridges, none of the top bridges have been hacked in last 1 year or so. Like Layer0 is fine, Wormhole is fine after their first hack, Hyperlane is fine. Uh, all of the major bridges are fine, because people now understand the risk and are building accordingly. Okay. These are basic concepts. Okay, let me then talk about unified bridges a bit. Now we talked about chain to chain bridges. One thing at Polygon we are doing is we are building Aglair, which is a ZK unified bridge, which tries to combine the best of all worlds. So first advantage of it is that it's not a 1:1 bridge with just Ethereum and Arbitrum, for example. It is a bridge. It's sort of a mesh which connects all of the chains that all of the chains together that connect into Aglair, which means like let's say if there are 10 chains in Aglair, there's Ethereum, there is OKX chain, there is Katana, there is ZK EVM, and so on. You can move from any of these chain to any other chain directly without hopping through Ethereum. You can just directly go from any chain to any other chain. There's huge step up from native bridges, which are just 1:1. So unified bridges definitely would be the future. Now, when you introduce unified bridges, you have a hard security problem to solve, which is how do you trust other chains? Now, traditionally, native bridges or canonical bridges have only connected to Ethereum because all L2 say Ethereum is more secure than me. If Ethereum goes rogue, I will be done anyway. So I can trust Ethereum. I can connect to Ethereum without worrying about anything. But I will not connect my bridge to anyone else because I think I'm more secure than others. What Aglair introduces is a concept of it's a term called pessimistic proofs, very badly named, but we are engineers. The concept there is that it basically it allows. So first, let me explain the feature, what it allows, and then I'll say how it works. It basically evens out the security playfield for every chain and allows any chain to join this bridge cohort, this bridge mesh. This means that like if let's say I'm Ethereum, I'm connected to Katana, Arbitrum, Optimism in this mesh. I don't need to worry about any third-party random chain coming in. If tomorrow I launch Mudit chain and I connect to mesh, I would not be compromising security of existing chains. The existing chains would have still full 100% security, and that's because of this ZK proven feature, pessimistic proofs, which essentially says, and it's a very simple invariant if you think about it, and it just says that the outgoing assets from any chain must be smaller than or equal to the incoming assets in a chain. It's a very simple invariant, can be formally proven. But it's the invariant which is the hardest in practice to maintain for a bridged bridge network. Because usually in these mint and burn bridge networks, what happens is you burn on any side, you mint on any side. If the connection breaks, that you're not burning enough on one side, or if they don't track, like let's say Arbitrum became malicious, for example, they inflated my USDC balance to 1 billion, whatever. And then I burned 1 billion on Arbitrum and was able to withdraw on Ethereum, 1 billion USDC. That would be bad. This is where pessimistic proofs come in. Pessimistic proofs don't care about the chain state. They don't care if my balance on the chain is 1 billion or $10 or $0. Doesn't matter. They say if the chain is saying like from my chain, 1 billion tokens are exiting to Ethereum, then you must first have a history or track record of at least $1 billion of tokens coming in. You can't just skip that. Like it's basically it's a simple accounting book. Every time anything comes in, the asset balance of the chain increases. Anything goes out, balance of the chain decreases. That balance can never go to negative. And very, very simple concept to manage. You have any question?
Is this like UTXO based? Is it like UTXO based system?
No, it's not claim based or per transaction. When the transactions happens, yes, they can be UTXO, but they get collapsed down with every transfer. So it gets summed up into a single number after every transfer. So yeah, at the end, it's just accounting. When it's happening, yes, it sort of is like UTXO, not technically, but yes. But as it gets collapsed down, it only maintains the final net balance, which must always be positive. Go ahead.
Hi, you're right that over the last 2 years, most bridge security was outsourced kind of to companies like Layer Zero. But have you thought about, or would you like to talk about a failure scenario? Let's say Layer Zero get hacked tomorrow, and everybody is screwed, what happens next, and what, for example, Polygon would do about it.
Yeah, I mean that's what keeps us up. That's why like we built Aglier to avoid getting hacked and so on. But yet talking about Layer0, because Layer0 is the biggest third-party bridge by far right now. Them getting hacked definitely would be massive. Now it really depends on the level of hack that happens. There have been small, not hacks, but anomalies on Layer0, which has been silently patched and life continues. For example, as I said, Layer0 takes on the reorg risk. If the chain they are bridging from reorgs, there is a double spend scenario there. It has happened in practice sometimes where, okay, let's say I'm going from Arbitrum to Optimism. I send funds from Layer0 and I get my funds on Optimism, and then Arbitrum reorgs and Layer0 doesn't get funds on Arbitrum. So Layer0 is down. It didn't happen on Arbitrum, but it happened on some chain. It has happened a few times, but in most cases, the chains reimburse Layer0. So it just happens all under the cover. They get paid back. They are whole again. In some cases, when the chain says, no, you should have waited for my finality. I'm not giving you any finality guarantees till I post the state on Ethereum. Then Layer0 just eats up the cost as cost of doing business, sort of. So it's part of their risk profile. These are the simpler or expected losses that are part of the businesses, and they happen. They keep going on. That's fine. Now, a more catastrophic hack where like an infinite mint bug happened or something like that would be much more dangerous. In Layer0 scenario, it would still be contained because they have separate deviants for separate assets on separate chains. So if, let's say, one deviant was compromised or one deviant route was compromised, that might only let you mint infinite one token on one chain. It won't let you mint infinite tokens, number of tokens on infinite number of chains. This means, let's say, even the worst case scenario, their most liquid token USDT0, their deviant gets compromised. So you are able to mint infinite number of USDT0 on route most used chain Arbitrum, for example. So this would be the worst case single hack scenario. You can mint unlimited USDT0 on Arbitrum. Very massive thing, but as soon as it will happen, all of the exchanges have monitoring for anomaly detection in balances and so on. They would stop deposits from Arbitrum. All of the third-party bridges would stop bridging assets. Layer0 would obviously pause their bridge, cut off the Arbitrum arm as well. So the incident would get isolated on Arbitrum. The most damage would be to the on-chain LP providers that exist on Arbitrum, because whoever minted all of this USDT0 will go to all of the DEXs, Uniswap, SushiSwap, and so on, and dump their illegally got USDT0 for native assets which can't be frozen, like ETH, like DAI, and so on. And that would be the maximum impact. Whatever liquidity is in USDT0 pairs on Arbitrum, I don't know right now, maybe a couple $100 million perhaps, that would be the maximum impact. It's still massive impact, but Layer0 right now has, I think, over $100 billion in assets in secured. So comparatively, yes, still the maximum impact is very less, and that's how it was built. I'm sure they would be able to cover the losses like Wormhole did when it got hacked like 3 years ago. So in practice, yeah, if it happens again, I expect Layer0 Foundation to just reimburse users whatever the amount was, and life continues. Hopefully people will learn a lesson. However it happened, we'll fix it so it doesn't happen again. But I don't think it would be as catastrophic as just the chain dying or something like that.
Hi, I have two questions actually. So like one of them is like when you introduced Aglier, the first thing that came to my mind was IBC, Internet of Blockchains from the Cosmos ecosystem. So I would like to know, like, how do you compare Aglier in comparison to IBC?
Yeah, for sure. So IBC is just one part of Aglier in some sense. IBC is just a messaging standard. You can do anything. Aglier obviously has that underlying layer, but the thing that makes it safe pessimistic proof, as I was saying, is those sort of feature sets are what makes it suitable to be used as a universal, unified liquidity layer, universal bridge. Because then, with the security of pessimistic proofs, I can connect to as many chains as I want and I'll be safe. If I don't have this guarantee, I would be very resist as a chain. I will not want to connect to a system where there are less secure than me chains connected. So that's why like Aglair, just you can have very secure chains, you can have very less secure chains, all connected together, having interop between each other, bridging between each other without taking on risk from each other.
Right. So, and like, thanks for the answer. The second question that I have is like, with and L2's enhancing the security in terms of moving to next stages, as L2 Beats has laid out the plan of the roadmap for L2's. How do you think bridging will change when L2's have like moved on further to different stages and like have developed a lot in terms of their security and censorship resistance?
So bridging already, if we see, is moving from canonical bridges to external bridges. Less and less people are so with bridging. The thing is, you can always have the same asset bridged through multiple bridges. You can bridge USDC through the canonical bridge. You can bridge it through CCIP. You can bridge it through any other bridge, whatever. But there is usually one canonical representation which wins. Like if Circle says that my real USDC on Arbitrum is the one bridged through CCIP, then that's the real one. Any other USDC that exists on the chain would sort of be worthless. You would be able to bridge back and get back your USDC on Ethereum, sure, but the canonical representation which Circle blessed would win, which means the asset issuer select which bridge to use, not the chain. So as we are seeing more and more asset issuers are using external bridges, because external bridges give them better support, they give them more marketing support, they give them more features and so on. So I think we'll keep moving in the same directions where canonical bridges, native bridges will keep becoming more and more secure, but unfortunately less and less people would be using them, and people will just move to third-party bridges.
Got it. Thanks.
No worries. Okay. So yeah, we started on Aglair. We have pessimistic proofs now. All of the chains are connected to each other. You can send money, you can send any assets. You can send any asset from any chain into any chain anytime, and you have security guarantees. The other concept Aglair also brings in is the chain finality, that allows chains to. So Aglair has concept of two types of chains. One is Aglair native chains, which settle to Aglair, and the other is we call them outposts. Again, bad at naming, but outpost chains are basically the chains that don't settle to Aglair. They have their own finality mechanism. They can settle anywhere. The reason we sort of have these two different concepts and we bring them in together is because, as I said, like chain finality, which is about transactions happening on the chain itself, avoiding reorg and so on, is great. And generally, in most cases, you would see that the bridges sit above this and the bridges control the asset finality. The chain finality, whatever happens, is irrelevant to bridges. If layer 0 wants to rug you despite you being finalized, they will rug you. Now Aglair combining both of these concepts basically means that you have guarantees of both things. Like it just, the bridge is guaranteed to be finalizing and the chain is guaranteed to be finalizing to the same state. You can't have one or the other rugging each other. They're finalizing in the same way. And yeah, that's how we solve some of these problems with Aglair. And the eventual goal is to again be be a better native bridge. So I honestly don't see Aglair as a competitor to Layer Zero or anyone like or Hyperlane or these third-party bridges. I see it as a better canonical or better native bridge because the level of security we offer are similar or better than what the native bridges offer, um, much better than what the third-party bridges offer. And the feature set Aglair offers are comparable to what the third-party bridges offer. So it sort of tries to get the best of both worlds. And yeah, that's the goal with Aglair. That's a quick summary about the bridge ecosystem right now. Any other questions we have?
Not quite sure if it's a fair question. So basically, so you were talking about like intent breaching or like third party and canonical. Like I'm not expert in breaching, but like I still wondering like for user, when we use the intent breaching, so basically like we want to get the money in the destination chain, and then I release my money in the source chain, and is this sort of like safer for user to actually get the money first, and then the canonical breach?
So that's where like the intent provider or solver is taking on some risk. That's why they charge a fee. The intent solver is saying, okay, like I will have to wait 1 hour on this canonical bridge, but I trust Arbitrum will not reorg. So I will give you the money in advance. I will charge you some fees. So it's just part of their business model. Plus, these intent solvers are so efficient now that most of their bridgings are netted out. So they don't even have to take on the risk. For example, if Alice wants to go from Arbitrum to Ethereum and Bob wants to go from Ethereum to Arbitrum, both are moving 100 USDC. The solver would just net these two out, give Alice's money to Bob, Bob's money to Alice, without taking on any risk, while charging both of them some fees. So in practice, most of the bridges now on high volume chains are netted out. The remaining 5-10%, whatever you rebalance, yeah, they take on the opportunity risk.
Then in that sense, it sounds like for user, I should use intent breaching.
Oh yeah, for users, 100% should always use. In fact, not just intent bridges. Use any bridge aggregator. Use the bridge which has the fastest bridging time and at least some brand name because you don't want a bridge to just take your money and run away. But yeah, just for for users, almost. I mean, the native bridges would still be the most cheapest because they are zero fee. So if you have time, use the native bridge. Otherwise, use the intent providers. In fact, Layer Zero doesn't even provide a bridging UI as far as I remember. It just they know users are gonna use through solvers anyway.
Because like there will be like some other relayer protocol, then the messaging fail, and then I will be like my money will be I don't know where I cannot find it. Like sometimes it happened to me, so that's why it's like intent sounds like the way to go for.
Yeah. It's sometimes obviously things can get stuck, but those are more technical issues now. Happen much less, but if you just message the team, they will help. Okay, that's great. We have 15 minutes. Any other topics anyone wants to discuss? Anything about L2s, bridges, anything?
Yeah, I have a question. So, in your experience dealing like with institutions boarding on Aglayer, how do they, manage the risk of using bridges? How do they teams see this bridging risk?
So that's a great question. In fact, that's why like institutions love Aglayer because they don't their risk is then just isolated to their chain. Like every other chain in the system, they don't care about. They know, like, especially with the Aglayer stack that we offer with ZK proofs and so on, they only trust or hook into Ethereum because that's where Aglayer settles as well. So yes, we have a trust dependency on Ethereum. If Ethereum rugs, yes, Aglayer would also rug. But enterprises, one, they love interoperability with every chain. They don't know why, but they need to be connected to every chain. They're like, no, our token needs to be interoperable with every possible chain in the world. But they also don't want to take on the risk from other chains. They're like, I want to be able to send money to this chain from China, but I don't want risk there. So that's where Aglayer comes in. You can still interop with other chains without taking trust or risk.
So how does AgLayer compare to other interop solutions like the systems that Optimism or Arbitrum are working on?
Yeah, for sure. So right now what Optimism Arbitrum have are just single chain bridges, just 1:1, but they are like omni-chain bridge from Optimism. They are making this like collective of, they're connecting all of these chains together and saying, okay, you can move from any chain to any chain. But the way Optimism is doing is there is no security guarantee anywhere. Every chain is trusting the other chain's sequencer, to be honest. Like they are completely trust maximized sort of bridge where if any chain rugs, the whole system can be rugged. So that's why they can't let anyone join the system. They will only let trusted sequences join. Unichain would join Base. They're trying to get Base to join. I don't know if it will join, whatever. Optimism will join, obviously. And they will, yeah, all of them would trust each other, to be honest. They could selectively not trust someone. Like me, if I'm Base, I could say, okay, I don't trust Uni, so I won't accept incoming transfers from Uni and so on. But in general, if they are accepting transfers, they are trusting someone. That's how it works.
Not sure if it's known, but I listened to a talk about hyperbridge. Not sure if you're aware and how is it compares. It looked a bit similar, or maybe I'm wrong at that.
Hyperbridge, I'm not sure, but in comparison with the Optimism bridge or the AgLayer bridge? Well, I don't know Hyperbridge. I can say from Optimism and AgLayer level, it differs because on AgLayer, I said, like, even if I'm Base, I'm connected to AgLayer, there is Unichain. I can get assets from Unichain with the guarantee that Unichain can't rug me, because the guarantee is basically provided by AgLayer. Even if Unichain reorgs and says I'm not sending assets to me anymore, AgLayer would still give me assets, because at the end AgLayer controls the assets. So yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Guess not. I think then we can wrap it up here and get a few minutes back. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Mudit. So you do have a little break, and in 10 minutes we're going to have Antoine from the Ethereum Foundation.